Hey there friends, welcome to my channel. Tonight I have a bone-chilling story that will keep you on the edge of your seat. It's about the mystery of the disappearing children, a tale that is as unsettling as it is captivating. I promise you won't want to miss a moment of it. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe and comment below where you are listening from. I have something special just for you, and you can find it by clicking the link in the description. Now grab your blanket, turn off the lights, and let the sound of rain guide you through this terrifying adventure. Ready? Let's begin. It was a night like no other, with rain pouring down and the thunder rumbling in the distance. I sat in my cozy room, listening to the rain tapping against my window. The sound was soothing, but it also masked the whispers of the story I was about to tell. In my small town, tales often drifted around, especially stories about the children who vanished mysteriously. It all started one stormy night just like this one. There was a boy named Timmy who was known for being brave. He loved adventure and exploring the woods behind his house. But one day he didn't come home. His parents searched high and low, calling his name through the rain-soaked trees. The town gathered, worried whispers filling the air. They searched until the sun came up, but there was no sign of Timmy. Everyone was scared, and as days turned into weeks, more children began to disappear. One day I was playing with my friends when we heard the eerie stories about the whispering woods. They say that on rainy nights, you could hear the lost children calling for help. Some say they never returned because they followed the sound of laughter that led them deeper into the woods. Intrigued and a bit scared, I decided to investigate. I told my friends, and together we made a plan. With flashlights in hand, we headed out to the woods one stormy night. The rain dripped from the branches and the air felt thick with mystery. As we walked, the further we went, the quieter it became. The only sound was the soft patter of rain around us. Suddenly we stopped. In the distance we heard something faint but clear, a child's laughter. It floated through the trees, echoing like a ghostly song. It was chilling yet strangely inviting. We looked at each other, our eyes wide with a mix of fear and excitement. I wanted to turn back, but the laughter drew us in like a magnet. We followed the sound, sticking close together. The trees loomed over us, their twisted branches resembling hands reaching out, trying to pull us away. The laughter grew louder and then it stopped. We stood frozen, feeling the damp chill of the night. Then we started to hear the crying. It was soft at first, but it quickly grew into a heart-wrenching sob. I felt a surge of bravery. I needed to see what was happening. We pushed through the bushes and came into a clearing. It was covered in mist, and at the center stood a large old tree. Moonlight peeked through the clouds, casting an eerie glow. And then we saw them, shadowy figures that looked like children, standing near the tree. Their faces were pale, and their eyes were wide with fear. "Help us," they whispered, their voices barely audible over the rain. My heart raced. I wanted to help them, but something about the scene made me hesitate. There was something odd about the way they looked. Before I could think, two of my friends took a step forward. The shadows moved closer to them, their cries turning to laughter again. "Come play with us," they beckoned, their voices sweet but empty. I wanted to scream for my friends to come back, but words failed me as I watched. The night grew darker and the rain fell harder. It felt like a dream, but I knew it wasn't. I needed to act fast. I grabbed my friends' arms, pulling them back just in time. The laughter turned to screeches, echoing through the woods. The children's faces twisted in anger, their eyes darkening. Running back was a blur. We didn't look back, we just ran. The rain fell heavier as if it were trying to wash away our fear. We could hear the faint cries following us, but we didn't stop until we reached the safety of my house. Breathless and scared, we locked the door and huddled together. We could still hear the rain, but it felt different now. It wasn't soothing anymore. It was a reminder of the night we almost got caught in the whispering woods. In the days that followed, we told our friends what had happened, but many didn't believe us. They thought it was just an adventure. But I knew better. The thought of those lost children haunted me, and I wondered what would have happened if we hadn't left when we did. I started researching the disappearances, looking for clues. I found old newspaper articles about kids who vanished every decade, always during stormy weather. It was like a cycle, a horrible pattern that repeated itself. I learned about the tree in the woods, an old legend said to be a portal to another world. Many nights, I dreamed about those children, their faces haunting my thoughts. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were still out there, waiting for someone to rescue them. One rainy night, curiosity got the better of me again. I decided to go back to the woods alone. I knew I shouldn't, but I felt a pull, a need to know the truth. As I entered the woods, the rain began to pour again. The laughter echoed, more enticing this time. I walked deeper, my heart thumping. The shadows returned, but this time they were clearer. I saw their faces. Timmy was among them. "Help us," he shouted, his voice tinged with fear. I wanted to run to him, but the other children surrounded him, their eyes dark and pleading. Suddenly, I realized they didn't want to leave the woods. They wanted me to stay with them. My heart raced in panic. I turned to run, and as I did, the ground beneath me shifted. I fell, tumbling through a thick fog. The laughter and cries faded away, replaced by a silence that was almost deafening. When I landed, everything was dark. I could feel the rain still falling, but I couldn't see. Panic set in. I called out for my friends, for anyone, but there was no answer. I was all alone in a place that didn't feel real. I began to crawl, feeling around, hoping to find my way back to safety. But then I saw them, the children. They emerged from the shadows, reaching out with ghostly hands. "Stay with us," they whispered, their voices echoing in my mind. I could feel their desperation, and suddenly I understood. They didn't want to be alone anymore. They wanted company in their lonely world. I was terrified, but deep down I felt sorry for them. No child should be lost, no child should cry alone. I thought of how each one of them had families, loved ones who were searching for them. "I can't stay here," I said, my voice trembling. "I need to go back." Their faces morphed from sorrow to anger again, as if they were hurt that I didn't want to help them. "You are like us," Timmy said, his voice echoing through the darkness. "You belong here with us." Just then, I remembered the stories I had heard about the portal. I needed to find a way back to my world, to the life I once knew. With all the strength I had left, I turned and ran. I could hear them behind me, their cries growing softer as I moved faster through the fog. Finally, I burst through the mist, tumbling back into the clearing near the old tree. The storm was still raging, but I could see the way back home. I ran again, not daring to look back. The whispers of the children faded into the storm, their shadows growing dim, until they were gone. When I reached my house, I slammed the door behind me and locked it tight. I knew I was safe, but the sense of dread still lingered. I had escaped, but I also felt the weight of their sadness. From that night on, the disappearing children's story took on a new meaning for me. It was no longer just a tale to tell, it was a reminder of the importance of listening to our fears and finding the courage to help others, even if they might be lost in a world we can't see. I often heard the rain tapping against my window, a sound that now seemed to carry their voices. I realized they were no longer strangers, they were a part of me, and I could never truly forget them. And so, the story continues, drifting through every stormy night, reminding us all to cherish our loved ones and to never ignore the whispers of the world around us. But the stormy nights were far from over, and I found myself slipping deeper into the legend of the disappearing children. Despite the terror that gripped me, I felt an odd connection to them. Each stormy night when the rain tapped against my window, I felt the urge to know more about what happened to Timmy and the other lost kids. One evening, while I sat wrapped in my blanket, I heard a soft knock on my window. I froze. It was late, way past bedtime, and my parents were asleep. With my heart pounding, I gathered my courage and crept toward the window. I pulled back the curtain with trembling hands, expecting to see nothing but rain. To my shock, standing in the downpour was a girl no older than I was. Her hair was soaked, and her eyes glinted like dark marbles. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely rising above the sound of the rain. Before I even knew what I was doing, I opened the window just a crack. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice shaky. "I'm Lily. I need help to escape," she said, her eyes pleading. "They want me to stay." My mind raced. Was this a trick? Was I dreaming? All those stories of the lost children filled my head. "How do I help you?" I asked, leaning closer to the window. "Take me to the old tree," she replied urgently. "That's where I'll be safe." I hesitated, knowing the danger that lurked in the woods, but her need felt genuine. I couldn't abandon a child in distress. "Okay, but how can I trust you?" "It's me. You have to believe me," she said, her voice trembling as the rain intensified. Against my better judgment, I decided to help her. I grabbed my flashlight and put on my raincoat, determined to shield myself from the downpour. With one last glance at my sleeping house, I opened the door and stepped out. The air was thick and heavy with rain and mist, almost feeling alive as I walked toward the woods. The path was flooded, and the sound of the raging storm surrounded me, drowning out the thoughts of fear creeping into my mind. I heard Lily behind me, her soft footsteps barely audible. As we entered the woods, the atmosphere changed. The rain muffled the noise of the world, creating an eerie silence that made my skin crawl. I could feel eyes watching us from the shadows, and the trees whispered with secrets of their own. "Keep going," Lily urged, her voice trembling. We're almost there. Every step brought a shiver down my spine. The deeper we went, the more the darkness seemed to swallow us whole. The trees twisted and turned above us like claws reaching for the sky. I shone my flashlight ahead, illuminating glimpses of movement. Small creatures scurried away, but it felt like there was more, something hiding just out of sight. Suddenly, the laughter returned, echoing through the trees. It was high-pitched and mocking, a cruel reminder of the lost kids trapped in this dark place. My heart raced as I turned to Lily, who looked terrified. "Did you hear that?" I whispered, my voice barely escaping my lips. "It's them," she said, her eyes wide with dread. "They're close." Just then, the laughter morphed into cries, the kind of cries that can chill your bones. "Help us! Help us!" They echoed around us, coming from everywhere, making my head spin with fear. It felt close, like the voices were right behind me. In a panic, I pointed the flashlight around, trying to catch a glimpse of the children. Then I saw them, pale figures emerging from the shadows. Their faces were twisted in despair, and their eyes hollow and dark. They looked lost, like lost souls who couldn't find their way. "Stay with us," one of the boys shouted. He looked like Timmy, his features painfully familiar. "Join us in our game." "No. You have to help us," Lily cried, pulling me away. I felt a wave of guilt wash over me. I didn't want to abandon them, but I knew I couldn't stay. The figures moved closer, their whispers melding into a cacophony of cries, begging me to join them, pleading for my help, their long fingers reaching out, desperate for connection. "Run," I shouted to Lily. We turned and sprinted deeper into the woods, the figures' cries chasing us. My heart pounded in my chest as I dodged branches and fallen logs, trying to keep my focus on the path ahead. The laughter faded for a moment, replaced by the sound of rushing water. I glanced back, and the children were rushing after us, their movements erratic and unnatural, like marionettes controlled by strings. I could see their faces now, twisted with anger and betrayal. We stumbled into a clearing, the old tree standing tall before us, its gnarled limbs reaching out as if to trap us. "This way," I shouted, pushing toward the trunk. "We'll hide behind the tree." Just as we reached it, the shadows closed in. The laughter returned, filling the air like a cruel melody. I pushed my back against the rough bark, heart racing, breath quickening. It felt like the whole forest was vibrating with the energy of their rage, the atmosphere heavy and suffocating. The figures encircled the tree, their eyes glowing in the half-light, illuminating their hollow faces. "You can't escape," one of them hissed, and I felt the ground tremble beneath me. "You are one of us now." Lily clung to me, her fingers digging into my arm. "We need to find the light," she whispered desperately. "It's our only hope." With no time to waste, I scanned the area frantically. "What light?" I asked, my voice shaking. "What do you mean?" But before Lily could respond, a strong wind whipped through the clearing, sending leaves and debris flying. The children screeched, their cries rising to a deafening level. "Join us. Come play forever," they urged. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to run, but I felt paralyzed, trapped in the gaze of the lost children. The world around me began to blur as if the boundaries of reality were dissolving. I remembered the stories about the tree, how it was said to have magical properties. If I could find a way to tap into that magic, maybe I could send those children back to where they belonged and save Lily. "Hold on," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. I closed my eyes, reaching out to the tree, feeling its rough bark beneath my palms. "Let us go. We don't belong here," I shouted into the storm. The wind howled louder as if responding to my plea, and for a moment, I felt a strange warmth spread through my fingertips. "It's working," I yelled, opening my eyes to see the children wavering like a mirage. But then everything changed. The ground trembled violently, and the shadows twisted, taking on more defined forms. They lunged toward us, their faces twisted in fury. "You cannot leave," they screamed, their voices intertwining, each word laced with despair. Just as they reached for me, a bright light burst from the tree, blinding us. "Lily, hold on," I yelled, instinctively pulling her closer as the light surrounded us. The angry cries of the children mixed with the overwhelming brightness until everything blurred. I could feel the air around us crackling, and then silence. When I opened my eyes again, the storm had passed. I lay on soft grass, the moon shining brightly above me. I blinked, disoriented, and turned to find Lily beside me, her face painted with confusion. "Did we make it?" she asked softly, glancing around. I looked at the clearing. There was no sign of the old tree, no footprints, nothing but peace. Just a quiet night, as if the chaos had never happened. We were alone, but the air felt lighter. "I think we did," I breathed, overwhelmed with relief. But in my heart, I knew the truth wasn't so simple. The laughter still echoed faintly in my mind, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the children were waiting, watching, somewhere deep within the woods. They would not let go that easily. As I stood up, a chill ran down my spine. Somewhere in the distance, I heard the faint sound of children laughing again. The whisper of a forgotten promise lingered in the air, and as I turned to leave the woods behind, a sense of dread washed over me. This was not the end, it was just the beginning. With every storm that came after, I knew I had only scratched the surface of the mystery. The lost children were still out there, and their secret would continue to haunt me, calling me closer each time the rain fell. What would come next? What would I discover if I ventured back into the darkness of the whispering woods? Would I uncover the truth, or would I too become one of the children lost to the shadows? I understood then that the woods held secrets darker than I could imagine. As I stepped away from the clearing, I looked back one last time. But all that remained was the normalcy of the night. No shadows, no eerie laughter. Yet, a sense of foreboding wrapped around me tighter than a wet blanket. I had faced something that few could claim to understand, and I was certain it wouldn't let me go that easily. Days turned into weeks, and the storms continued. With each rumble of thunder, my mind raced back to that night. I had almost convinced myself it was a nightmare, a trick of the brain, when a single moment would pull me back to reality. It was a Wednesday night, and heavy clouds rolled in, thick and dark. The air felt electric, charged with an unsettling energy. I huddled under my blanket, trying to focus on a movie, but the images danced before my eyes, fading in and out like a broken record. Just as I reached for my popcorn, the lights flickered. I glanced up, suddenly alert. The voltage surged and hissed before plunging the room into darkness. My heart raced as I grabbed my flashlight, knowing I'd have to venture out. Maybe it was just a power outage, but in the back of my mind, I feared the worst. "Stay calm," I whispered to myself. "You can do this." Slowly, I crept to the window and peeked outside. The rain pelted the ground like angry fists, creating a rhythm that was almost hypnotic. That familiar, creepy feeling wrapped around me again. I couldn't shake the sense that something was coming, something drawn by the storm that filled the air. Room quiet, I felt brave enough to go outside. I stepped onto the porch, cautiously scanning the darkness. The usual sounds of the night were drowned out by the raging storm. I fought against the chill crawling up my spine. Then I heard it, a soft, childlike giggle fluttering through the trees. I froze. It sounded close, too close. Was it another trick, or had I truly crossed over into their world again? "Timmy?" I called, my voice shaking in the cold night. "Is that you?" The giggle became a flutter, then silence. My heart thudded in my chest, pounding like a drum warning me of approaching danger. Was it real? Had I lost my mind? As I stood there, the sound of the giggle returned, but this time there were more voices overlapping, a chorus of laughter mixed with cries. All of it resonated deep within like echoes from another realm, calling me back to where I didn't want to go. I stumbled back inside, feeling the breath hitch in my throat, but a compulsion pulled me toward the woods again. The idea of confronting what lay within felt foolish yet intoxicating. The thought of Timmy and the others kept tugging at my heart. "Just one more time," I murmured to myself, the wrongness of the decision washing over me. With shaky breaths, I bundled up and slipped on my raincoat, my flashlight glinting in the darkness. I stepped back into the storm, moving cautiously toward the whispering woods. With each step, the laughter faded, only to be replaced with barely audible whispers, like secrets being exchanged among shadowy figures lurking amongst the trees. Entering the depths of the woods felt like stepping into a different world altogether. The rain obscured my vision, yet I pressed on, feeling the energy shift as if the very ground was alive with emotions. The air felt electric, charged with dread. Suddenly, I noticed something flickering in the distance, a pale blue light reflecting through the trees. It pulsed like a heartbeat, drawing me closer. An overwhelming urge to investigate surged in me. Pushing through the underbrush, I finally reached the source. Before me was a small glade, and in its center stood an ancient, twisted tree. Its trunk was gnarled and wide, with dark shadows swirling around it like smoke. The light pulsed with a strange rhythm, revealing children in the shadows, their faces just past the reach of the light. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding. It was them again, Timmy, Lily, and others I couldn't recognize. They danced around the tree, their laughter mixed with the wind, creating a haunting melody that echoed through my mind. "Join us," they called, their voices sweet but laced with something dark. "You're one of us. Play with us forever." The closer I stepped, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. I felt their pull, a magnetic force that threatened to consume me. The light grew brighter, and with it, the shadows cast by the tree stretched out like claws, reaching for me. Gathering my courage, I raised my flashlight. "No," I shouted. "I'm not like you." In an instant, the childlike laughter twisted into an ominous hiss. "You can't escape." Timmy's voice cut through the air, familiar yet charged with a darkness that sent a chill through my bones. Their shapes shifted, intertwining with the shadows of the tree, morphing into something grotesque, their smiles wide and eerie. The air thickened, and I could feel the grip of fear tightening around me. "You don't understand," I yelled, stepping back. "You think I want to be part of this?" The creatures drew closer, their faces contorting with fury. The beauty of a child's laughter faded, now a curse. I had come to help, but instead I was ensnared in their realm. "Help us!" they cried, the sound a twisted echo of despair. "You can't leave us here." Panic ignited within me, and I turned, racing back through the trees. My heartbeat thundered in my ears as branches clawed at my raincoat, trying to hold me back, to pull me into their dark world. I felt the eyes upon me, heard the whispers close in. "Help us!" they echoed, their voices rising again, desperate and haunting. I ran blindly, darting left and right, searching for a way out of the woods. But each path felt wrong, leading me deeper into the heart of the forest, farther away from safety. I stumbled over roots, and the shadows danced behind me, whispering secrets I was desperate not to know, taunting me with the truth of what I faced. Finally, I spotted a flicker of light ahead. I raced toward it, praying it was the way back. As I neared the source, I saw it was the old tree again, glowing in the darkness, its gnarled branches spreading wide. The ground around it churned, shadows swirling like a storm in their own chaos. Realizing I was drawn back to the source of my fear, a wave of resolve surged through me. I would not allow myself to be drawn in. With everything I had, I shouted into the night. "I won't stay. I refuse." The shadows writhed, shrieking in fury. The energy cracked and pulsed, warping the very fabric of the air around me. I faced the tree, my determination solidifying. Somehow, it felt like this tree was at the heart of it all. If I could tap into its magic, I might be able to free Timmy and the others without giving myself over to darkness. With one final push, I reached out to the pulsing glow. Maybe this was the portal they had talked about, the way in and the way out. If I could channel its power, maybe I could change this cycle of despair. As I drew nearer, the shrieks of my lost friends turned into wails of anguish. The shadows surged around me, desperate to contain me within their grasp. I closed my eyes, focusing on the warmth emanating from the tree. "Away!" I bit out, forcing the words through gritted teeth. "You don't own me." And just like that, it happened. A blinding flash erupted, filling the glade with golden light. The gnarled branches of the tree trembled, and the figures screamed as the light surged, breaking the hold they had on me. When the brilliance faded, I found myself back at the edge of the woods. The rain had stopped, and the moon hung high in the sky. I blinked, disoriented. It felt as though I had emerged from a terrible dream, the weight of the darkness slowly lifting. But in the silence, I couldn't ignore it. The faint whispers still floated through the air, teasing at the edges of my mind. I had escaped this time, but deep down, I felt the pull of the shadows still lurking in the woods. What price would I pay to understand what happened in that dark place? Would I return again, daring to confront the secrets waiting for me? The unease simmered in my gut, teasing me with the promise of answers. Each storm would bring me closer to the door I dared not open again. The children were still lost, drifting like shadows in the night, and I knew my journey wasn't over. With each passing storm, the pull grew stronger, and I found myself unable to escape the truth. The woods, with their haunting whispers and ghostly laughter, echoed in my mind as if they were alive. Each night, I lay awake, replaying what had happened. The faces of those lost kids, their eyes filled with longing and anger, and the strange light that had flickered from that cursed tree. I tried to ignore it, tried to forget the chilling experience, but one fateful evening the skies darkened once more. The air became thick with humidity and anticipation. I could feel the storm brewing, a brewing tempest that mirrored the turmoil inside me. I squeezed my eyes shut, hoping to block out the thoughts, but the images danced across my vision, relentless and taunting. Just as I thought about calling it a night, a soft knock echoed through my window. At first I thought it was the wind, but then it came again, more urgent. I turned my head slowly, dread creeping up my spine. My heart raced as I approached the window, my breath hitching in my throat. Peering outside, the world was cloaked in darkness, rain falling in sheets, but then I saw her. A little girl standing beneath the heavy branches of a nearby tree, her dress soaked and thin, clinging to her like a second skin. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the storm. "Please, I need your help." The familiar feeling washed over me, a mixture of fear and compassion that I couldn't shake. "Who are you?" I croaked, my voice trembling like the branches in the wind. She didn't answer but stepped closer, her face illuminated by a flicker of moonlight. That was when I recognized her, a child who had been part of the laughter from the woods, the one I hadn't saved. My heart sank. "You shouldn't be here," I murmured, fear curling in my stomach. "You can't be here." But the girl only continued to beckon, her finger curling as if inviting me to join her. Her eyes gleamed, bright but endlessly sad. She didn't seem to be the same innocent child I remembered. She looked older now, as if time had morphed her into something different. With each moment, it felt as if a shroud covered her, enveloping her in shadows that leached away her light. The fear tightened around my chest as the wind howled, rattling the window. I felt the need to step outside, to break free from my home's false safety. Ignoring every instinct telling me to stay, I opened the door. The rain soaked me immediately, the cold biting against my skin. "Come on," she urged, her voice urging me to follow. Without another thought, I trudged through the mud, eager to help though wary of her intentions. As I approached, she turned back, her laughter chiming like glass, an eerie note that echoed just beyond the framework of my understanding. I followed her deeper into the woods, and as I did, a strange calm enveloped me. The winds calmed as if they too were mesmerized by her presence. "Where are the others?" I asked, hoping for a shred of clarity in this darkness. "They're waiting," she said, her smile sharp, revealing a hint of the pain she carried. "We want to play." At that moment, I was pulled back into the nightmare, the memories flooding my mind, the swirling shadows, their desperate cries. "No," I gasped, suddenly realizing that I was being lured back to the glade, back to the tree. "You can't make me." But her laughter grew louder, swirling around me as if encasing me in an iridescent web. "It's too late," she taunted, her voice twisting like a serpent. "You already belong to us." Panic surged through my veins. I spun to flee, but the woods shifted. The trees seemed to draw closer, their branches twisting and clawing at me like hands seeking to pull me into their dark embrace. "You're not leaving," the whispers cooed, filling my head until I felt like I was drowning in their malevolence. Desperate, I fought against their pull, my heart racing as I plunged through the underbrush, branches tearing at my skin. "Let me go." I screamed into the darkness, the trees responding only with silence, their shadows dark as night. Just as I was about to lose hope, I stumbled upon a familiar clearing. The tree loomed ahead of me, pulsating in time with my frantic heartbeat, casting strange shadows that danced wickedly above the ground. The flickering light from its bark felt deceitful, like a beacon luring me into another trap. Gathering my strength, I approached the base of the tree. I reached out, wanting to touch it, wanting to know its secrets. But as my fingers brushed the bark, the shrieks of the lost children filled the air, pounding against my skull like drumbeats of despair. "Help us!" they wailed, their voices swirling around me, no longer sweet but filled with anger and longing. "You can change it. You must help us before it's too late." In that moment, I understood. The tree held their spirits, their stories trapped within its roots. They needed me to remember, to acknowledge them, to break the curse that bound them. But with that realization came a suffocating dread. What would I lose in the process? What price would I have to pay to free these lost souls? I slammed my eyes shut against the darkness, breathing deep to calm the chaos inside me. "I won't let you take me," I whispered, desperation filling each word. I had to find a way to help, to free them without losing myself. "I'll make a deal," I rasped. There was a sudden stillness, a heavy pause that hung in the air like fog waiting to be dispelled. The laughter and cries quieted, replaced by an unnerving silence that pronounced the depths of despair. "What will you give?" a voice echoed, sharp and chilling, as if emerging from the shadows themselves. "I promise to remember you," I stated, my voice trembling yet loud in the newfound quiet. "I'll share your stories. I'll help others remember the danger that lies within these woods. I won't let anyone forget you." The wind began to swirl around me, whispers rising into a desperate cacophony. "But can you keep that promise?" they shrieked, the wind wailing like a mournful creature. "You think you can walk away?" In the chaos, I fell against the tree, my back pressing against the rough bark. I could feel the sadness seeping into me, the weight of countless lost tales rushing through my veins. "I'll fight for you," I shouted, pouring my heart into every word. I'll carry your memory. Just let me help. The energy shifted, and for a moment, the ground beneath me trembled. The figures of the children emerged, their faces twisting between despair and hope. But what if no one believes you? The girl asked, her eyes gleaming with uncertainty. What if you forget? With fear swelling in my heart, I felt the heaviness of their gaze. I understood that regardless of what the world outside thought, I had to honor that promise. But as the storm raged around us, the wind howling, the branches reaching, I also recognized the danger that lay ahead. Then I won't rest until I find a way, I vowed, resolve firming inside me. I will make it known. I will make them listen. The winds howled louder, swirling into a tempest that seemed to react to my words, testing the sincerity of my promise. Shadows writhed and danced all around as the children began to take form, their faces clearer now, revealing the pain and anger in their eyes. They hovered closer, the longing palpable in the air. How do we escape? Timmy asked, his voice breaking with desperation. We are trapped. Show us the way. Pushing the fear away, for this was not the time to falter, I took a deep breath and focused on the light emanating from the heart of the twisted tree. Together, I said firmly, we will find the way together. You must hold on to your stories and trust me. Trust in your memories. With renewed urgency, I pulled back from the vision before me, breaking away from the grip of shadows. The whispers faded slightly but never truly disappeared, lingering long enough to remind me of their existence. Together, I repeated, feeling the warmth of their hope seep into my heart. As I turned to the tree, its bark glowed brighter, almost alive, signaling I was on the right path. Each child's face reflected hope, the darkness pulling away slowly yet surely. And with one definitive step forward, I felt something shift within the air, an energy lightning opening up. We'll be free, I shouted, my voice merging with the pleasure of the breeze flowing around us. But deep in my mind, I still heard the faint echoes of laughter trailing behind me. They were set free, but their whispers called me back, already weaving their way into my heart, binding my destiny with theirs. Each storm would bring me closer to the truth, a truth darker than I had imagined. The woods would always remember me, and I knew I would never truly escape their grasp. As I stumbled back through the trees, shadows danced at the edge of my vision, fleeting yet ever present. This was just the beginning of something much larger, a dance with darkness I could not hope to resist. Would I manage to uncover their stories? Or would I forever be lost within the tale? The wind whispered secrets, teasing and tormenting me as I stepped out of the woods. A sick sense of curiosity wrapped around my mind, urging me to listen closer, to delve deeper into the madness that awaited. As I walked home, my heart thudded heavily in my chest, weighing down the promise I'd made. Somewhere in the shadows of the woods, I knew their voices would echo, a chilling reminder that my connection to them was stronger than ever, a thread of fate intertwining our paths across time. The haunting game was far from over, and the woods awaited my return. What darkness lay ahead? What eerie tales would I uncover next? As I climbed the steps to my door, I braced myself for the winds of change on the horizon. There was no turning back, only the gathering storm. The moment I stepped inside my home, I felt a strange shift. The walls seemed to close in, shadows lingering longer than they should, stretching across the floor like fingers reaching for me. I took a deep breath, trying to push down the nervous energy swirling inside. The warmth of my home felt like a distant memory, replaced by a cold that sank into my bones. I clutched my flashlight, its beam flickering weakly, mirroring my uncertainty. What did I promise those kids? I had vowed to remember, but did I truly understand the depth of that promise? Would I have to face the woods again? The thought made my stomach twist in knots. The whispers grew louder in my mind, calling out with urgency. You have to tell the world about us, they echoed. You must make them see. I shook my head, pressing my hands to my ears as if that would quiet their cries. Not yet, I mumbled to myself. I need to think. I need to prepare. Stumbling into the living room, I flicked on the lamp. The glow cut through the darkness but did little to dispel the rising sensation of dread. As I sat on the couch, I tried to gather my thoughts, but the shadows kept moving in the corners of my vision. They slithered along the walls, teasing my fears and awakening something deeper inside me. Suddenly, a hard knock echoed against the front door, startling me from my fears. I jumped, heart racing again like a caged bird. Who could that be? I wondered, glancing nervously at the door. Another series of knocks resounded, harder this time, and a chilled sensation wrapped around me. With a shaky hand, I stood and approached the door, every instinct screaming at me to turn back. Still, curiosity gripped me. I would face this whatever it was. Who's there? I called out, my voice wavering. There was silence for a heartbeat before a quiet voice whispered back, "Help, please." My heart froze in my chest. It was like the voice I heard in the woods, a child's voice, soft and desperate. I hesitated, torn between fear and compassion. Maybe it was one of the lost kids. Maybe they needed me. Swallowing hard, I flung the door open, but no one stood out there. Just the empty porch glistening with rain and the swirling mist that sighed against the night. I stepped outside, scanning the surroundings, but nothing appeared. As I turned to close the door, I caught a movement from the corner of my eye. There, just at the edge of my yard, I saw a small figure slip behind a tree. My heart raced, adrenaline pumping through my veins. "Is anyone there?" I called out, my voice trembling. I followed the movement cautiously, each step forward heavy with uncertainty. The rain began to fall again, soft at first but soon a torrential downpour that felt like the night was weeping. The light from my flashlight danced wildly over the ground, illuminating patches of dark earth and glistening puddles. As I neared the tree, I felt the temperature drop, cooler than the rain-soaked air. And then I saw her, the child from the woods, her sodden dress clinging to her small body. She looked up at me, eyes glimmering in the dark, but her expression was haunting, lips curled into an unsettling smile. "You came," she said softly, her voice echoing like a distant memory. "Why are you here?" I asked, fear creeping into my words. "What do you want?" But before she could answer, a shadow moved behind her, an unsettling silhouette blending seamlessly with the night. My breath caught in my throat as it shifted, and the familiar sound of laughter rose around me, echoing through the trees. "Join us," it called, a spectral wind carrying the voices of the lost kids. "You're part of our game now." The words tore through me like ice and I stumbled back, dread pooling in my chest. I hadn't signed up for this. I was supposed to remember them, to help them, not be drawn into their twisted play. "What game?" I demanded, panic flooding my senses. But they only laughed, voices overlapping in a dissonant symphony of childhood innocence twisted by suffering. The girl stepped closer, her smile growing wider. "You play with us now," she said, and I felt the shadows pulling me in, creeping toward my feet, wrapping around my ankles like chains. "You can't leave." "No," I cried, yanking my foot back, but the shadows were strong. I felt the hands of those lost kids clutching at me, grasping at my heart, threatening to draw me back into the dark. The laughter intensified, echoing around me like thunder. Then, in a moment of desperation, I remembered the promise I had made. To tell their stories. To honor them. "I'll share your stories," I shouted, my voice cutting through the chaos. "I promise." The laughter stopped, replaced with an eerie silence that weighed heavily, suffocating in its intensity. I took a deep breath, my heart racing, and pressed deeper into the shadows. "Tell me. Let me tell the world." The girl's expression changed, the innocent glimmer replaced by something darker. "You think it will be that easy?" she whispered, her voice turning cold. "To tell the world? What if they don't believe you?" Panic surged through me again. Could I convince anyone? Did I really have the power to break this cycle? The question hung in the air like a specter, haunting me. I had to find a way to free them, to honor their cries, but doubt began to gnaw at my resolve. It felt like an eternal moment as I stood before the tree, caught between worlds, the warmth of the living and the cold grasp of the lost. The shadows tightened, and I squeezed my eyes shut, recalling the glow of the tree, the memories of the laughter, the echoes of each lost child. "I will not forget," I shouted, summoning strength from somewhere deep within. "You will not be silenced." And in that instant, the rain stopped, falling away to an unsettling stillness. Suddenly, the child lunged toward me, her fingers grasping at my arm, and I felt a sharp pain as she dug her nails into my skin. "You don't understand," she hissed. "It's never over." The ground trembled beneath my feet, and the shadows surged upward, encircling me in a swirling vortex of despair. I gasped as the darkness enveloped my sight, pulling me down into a chilling abyss. My heart raced as the world faded away, replaced by the soft murmurings of 100 lost souls, their whispers swirling like a torrent in my mind. And then I was gone. I fell into a different reality, the world around me spinning wildly. I could see glimpses, flashes of the children, their faces contorted in fright, trapped within the unseen vortex. I reached for them, desperate to pull them close, to break through to their light. "I'm here," I cried out into the dark void, hoping they could hear me. "Don't give up." But the more I fought, the darker it grew, the shadows tightening their grip. They wrapped around me like vines, squeezing the air from my lungs. I felt their fear, their anger swirling like a tempest. You wanted to help, their voices cried out, hauntingly resonating in the emptiness. But can you really? What will it cost? Anything, I shouted, feeling the weight of the world pressing down. I'll give anything to free you. The shadows shifted, swirling dangerously, and I caught sight of gnarled faces emerging from the void, twisted forms of the lost that reached out to me, mouths opened in wordless cries. I felt their despair resonating within me like a discordant symphony that echoed deep in my soul. Suddenly, a brilliant light burst forth, breaking through the darkness like a lighthouse cutting through a fierce storm. I gasped, eyes wide as the shadows writhed, retreating in fear from the radiant glow. As the light surrounded me, I could feel it, warmth flooding into my heart, washing away the cold. Remember, a voice urged, filled with hope. You have the power within. And just like that, the darkness shattered, melting away like ice under the sun. I stood, surrounded by the brilliant light, and as I looked around, I saw them. All the children who had been lost were there, their faces illuminated, a radiant hope shining in their eyes. I stepped forward, heart pounding with desire to help them. You're free, I cried out, wanting them to feel the light that enveloped us. Yet as the joy radiated outward, the shadows still lingered on the edges of the light. I turned, feeling their weight, knowing they were still there, still lurking, whispering promises that would tempt me back into their embrace. This isn't over, the shadows hissed, their voices melding into one chilling chorus. Your fight has just begun. You can't ignore us forever. I clenched my fists, knowing in my heart they would return, that the shadows still held power over the woods. The truth weighed heavy on my soul. I was connected to the lost, and with that connection came a burden, a duty to honor their memories and tell their stories no matter the cost. As I stepped out of the light, ready to break the bonds of fear, I felt the pull of the woods calling me back, beckoning me into the storm, reminding me that the dance was far from finished. With each breath I steeled my resolve. I would face the shadows once more. I would uncover the mysteries that lay hidden within the whispers of the night. And though I could not forget the darkness, I would illuminate their stories, bringing their tales to life for all to hear, even if it meant stepping back into the storm. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my decision settle heavily on my shoulders. The shadows still danced at the edges of my vision like dark flames, teasing me with their ominous whispers. I could hear the call of the woods, the pulsating heart of the tree beckoning me back into its depths. With every step I took towards those shadowy trees, my heart beat like a drum, echoing with a mix of fear and determination. I couldn't shake the sensation of being watched. It was as if the very air around me was charged with anticipation, preparing for what lay ahead. The world felt different now, charged with energy, the kind that prickled my skin and sent shivers racing down my spine. The moon cast an eerie glow as I stepped into the familiar path leading to the clearing. The silence was suffocating, interrupted only by the soft rustling of leaves and the distant calls of night creatures. Each soft sound seemed amplified, echoing in the stillness of the night, as if the world itself was holding its breath. As I ventured deeper, the branches loomed overhead, twisting and turning like skeletal hands reaching out to snag me. I shivered involuntarily, recalling the desperate cries of the lost children. Had I truly come here to help them, or was I merely walking into a trap? Doubts crept into my mind like smoke, curling around my thoughts and suffocating my courage. Then a soft voice drifted to me from the dark, a whisper that melted into the sound of the wind. Help us, it pleaded, just as it had before. The tremor in its tone set my heart racing again. We have waited for so long. I looked around, scanning the shadows for the source of the haunting voice. But all that greeted me was the steady thrum of darkness that pulsed like a heartbeat in the ground beneath my feet. Where are you? I called out, straining to hear any response. I could sense their presence nearby, their sorrow enveloping me like a damp blanket, suffocating and heavy. In a flash, I caught a glimpse of movement, a figure darting between the trees. Wait! I shouted, rushing forward, the adrenaline fueling my movements as the shadows seemed to close in behind me. Please don't go. But the figure slipped away, leaving only echoes of laughter that twisted in the night like shards of glass. The laughter ricocheted off the trunks of the trees, and it was no longer innocent. It morphed into something sinister, reaching deep into me, unraveling every fear I had buried. I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized how close I was to the very heart of this nightmare. What do you want from me? I cried, hoping to keep my voice steady. Join us, came the reply, a chorus of voices now swirling in a chaotic dance, intertwining and echoing through the woods. Shadows crept closer, dark figures forming just outside my line of sight. Children surprisingly familiar and yet unnervingly distorted. Their eyes bore into me hollow and cold, and their once playful faces twisted into something agonizing. I stumbled backward, the ground beneath my feet suddenly shifting. It felt as if the earth was breathing, the roots themselves waking from a long slumber. "You don't have to be afraid," one of the children said, stepping forward, her features softened by the moonlight. "We just want to play." "Play?" I echoed, my thoughts racing. I remembered the games of tag, the laughter I'd once heard beneath those canopy branches, but now it felt like a noose tightening around my neck. "What kind of game?" Her smile turned sour and her eyes flashed dark, the innocence evaporating into something grotesque. "A game of fears," she whispered. "Would you like to join? It'll be fun. Just like it was before." Before I could respond, a cacophony of laughter erupted around me, enveloping me in sound that echoed my deepest fears. It pounded against my chest, drowning my thoughts, twisting my stomach into knots. I clenched my fists, trying to hold onto my sanity as the air turned thick, pressing down on me. "Remember what you promised?" The voices taunted, swirling around me like a storm. "You said you'd help. But can you help if you don't face your fears? Come, let us show you." Suddenly, the ground shifted violently, the earth rumbling as if the very woods were alive, breathing, stirring with ancient energy. Trees creaked and groaned, their branches twisting as if reaching for me, and I felt myself pulled forward against my will. "No!" I shouted, but it was as if the woods had claimed me, luring me deeper into their grim embrace. Ahead of me, shadows warped into a monstrous shape, a grotesque figure seemingly woven from nightmare. "You think you can just walk in here and take away our stories?" It snarled, a low, rumbling growl that shook the ground. "You think you can save them? You can't even save yourself." The air thickened with the scent of damp earth and decay, wrapping around me, and my breath hitched. I was trapped, consumed by fear and despair. As much as I fought, I could feel the darkness gnawing at my resolve, unraveling the threads of my promise. The figure stepped closer, a silhouette against the flickering shadows, its eyes glinting like shards of ice. "You'll understand soon enough," it hissed, its voice an eddy of cold wind. "Your journey only begins when you forget what it means to be free." I recoiled as icy fingers brushed against my skin, a shiver crawling up my spine. I stumbled back, panic rising as I spun around. The shadows seemed to laugh now, their swirling forms twisting and turning, closing in on me like a nightmare made flesh. "You can't escape us," they cried, their voices melding into one high-pitched wail that reverberated through my bones and rattled my mind. "No. Get away," I shouted, forcing myself to move even as waves of fear crashed over me. The world around me blurred, the branches seeming to bend and stretch, reaching toward me like hungry mouths. Desperation flooded me as I ran deeper into the woods, branches clawing at my arms, tearing at my clothes, leaving small cuts that stung sharply, a reminder of the danger surrounding me. I could hear the shrieks of laughter echoing behind me, echoing the despair I had tried so hard to shake off, and I fought against it, pushing myself forward. Then I saw it, a flicker of light peeking between the trees, a glimpse of hope breaking through the suffocating dread. With a sudden burst of energy, I sprinted towards it, hoping against hope it would guide me out of this nightmare. But as I got closer, the light flickered ominously. It danced and shifted like a will-o'-the-wisp, luring me in. My heart raced with apprehension, but I couldn't stop myself. I needed an escape. When I reached the source, I found myself standing before the ancient tree, its bark glowing softly with a faint luminescence. The light pulsed rhythmically, echoing the beat of my chaotic heart. "This is your chance," a voice whispered, sweet and sinister. "Come closer. Remember them, and they might remember you." I hesitated at first, torn between the ghostly figures that hovered just outside the light and the intense brightness that filled me with warmth. "I will help you," I shouted into the night, my voice raw and trembling. "But I need you to help me too." The shadows paused as if considering my words. I could see the flicker of hope rise in those haunted eyes. The children waited, their forms shimmering on the edge of the light. "Then step into the light," they urged. With a deep breath, I took a tentative step closer, feeling the warmth envelop me. It was a stark contrast to the chill that still clung to my skin, and I could hear the whispers grow louder, almost inviting. "Face your fears," they urged. "Unlock the stories that bind us." As I crossed the threshold of light, the darkness shrieked, slashing at me with icy tendrils, but it was too late. The warmth wrapped around me, brightening everything. The haunting memories of fear and despair melted away for an exhilarating moment. But just as I began to feel free, a sudden darkness surged from the outskirts, a sharp wave of rage and desperation crashing against me. "You think you can leave?" the monstrous figure bellowed, thick shadows swirling like a thunderstorm. "You are ours." I felt myself being pulled back, the light flickering as the shadows encircled me again, the weight of despair dragging down my spirit. Desperation clawed at me, and I fought against the grip of the darkness, but it was relentless, dragging me deeper into its cold embrace once more. "No!" I screamed, grasping at the light that slipped through my fingers. "I won't let you take me." But the echoes of the lost children morphed into a tumultuous roar, drowning out my cries and forcing me to confront my fear once more. It whispered my name like a haunting lullaby, promising the salvation I desperately sought just beyond the shadows. I felt my strength diminish with every passing second, the shadows tightening their hold, threatening to engulf me. I had only one option left, one thing I could do to save myself and the souls lost within these trees. "Before I forget," I called out, mustering every ounce of strength, "I will tell your stories. I will honor you." The shadows hesitated, the dark figures faltering in their advance, swirling slowly around me. "Promise?" they whispered, voices filled with aching hope and desperation. "Yes," I shouted, my voice resolute. "I promise to share your stories, to make the world remember you. Just let me go." The grip of the shadows slackened, and I felt a strange warmth spreading from the light, enveloping me like a comforting embrace while still whispering the names of the lost. I was teetering on the edge, suspended between darkness and light, longing to break free but terrified of what I might lose. "Remember?" they echoed, a susurration running through the air. "Remember us." Just then the figure darted forward, its eyes piercing into my soul. "We will be watching," it snarled, and before I could respond, the shadows surged forth again, threatening to pull me back into the abyss. I closed my eyes, trying to focus on the words I had spoken, the promise I had made. The light enveloped me, pushing against the darkness, but I could sense the struggle that lay ahead. I had to find a way to break free, to manage this delicate balance. In that moment, the forest exploded into chaos. The wind howled, snapping branches and scattering leaves around me, while the ground trembled beneath my feet. I felt like I was at the center of a storm, and at any second, everything could unravel. But I held tight to my promise, my lifeline against the encroaching darkness. I opened my eyes to find the shimmering light before me, pulsing, inviting, urging me to step forward. As I took that step, I felt a rush of energy surge through me, lifting the weight of despair from my shoulders. "I am here to remember," I declared into the wild night, my voice echoing through the chaos as the shadows recoiled, their grip weakening. The tree behind me cracked like thunder, its energy surging, creating a ripple of light that crested over the darkness, illuminating the twisted forms of the lost children. "Then it begins," one of the children breathed, eyes glinting with hope. And in that moment, I knew this was only the beginning of the stories yet to be told, of the horrific dance I had entered with the shadows. No longer just a participant, I was now a storyteller, bound to honor their pain while walking the fine line between the light and dark, a world filled with terrifying unknowns and anguished spirits. The whirlpool of shadows drew back, revealing a path that twisted deeper into the woods. There was no turning back. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what lay ahead. The real game was just beginning, and the woods were waiting for me, filled with secrets, stories, and chilling horrors. I stepped forward, knowing that I would uncover everything, and face whatever horrors awaited me in this unending dance with the unknown. I could hear the wind whispering my name, interwoven with the cries of the children, with each breath bringing me closer to the truth of the woods. Each pulse of the tree sang out for the stories yet untold, and as I ventured deeper into the fray, I could feel a dreadful excitement brewing, a terrible thrill nestled deep within my heart. The shadows shifted once more, their laughter echoing around me, drawing me in as they dared me to uncover the next chapter of this dark tale. As the shadows shifted once more, their laughter echoing around me, drawing me in as they dared me to uncover the next chapter of this dark tale. I felt a chill creep down my spine, the sound wrapping around me like a cold hand. Each laugh pierced the silence, echoing through the trees. I hesitated, doubts racing in my mind, but there was a strange pull in the air, a magnetic force urging me to step further into the depths of the woods. I had to know what lay ahead. The path twisted and turned, obscured by thick underbrush and gnarled roots that seemed to reach out like fingers. Shadows whispered between the trees, flicking around me like flickering flames. My heart raced as I tried to focus on the light that came from the ancient tree behind me, hoping it would guide me through the darkness. Every rustle sent my pulse racing, the fear tightening around me like a vice. What could be hiding just behind those twisted trunks? I gritted my teeth and pressed on, determined to unveil the hidden stories, to give voice to the lost. But the forest twisted in unexpected ways. I came upon a clearing filled with fog that glowed with an unsettling bluish hue. It curled upward like ghostly tendrils wrapping around the trees. I felt drawn to it, a pull that threatened to consume my senses. I peered into the mist, half expecting to see familiar faces, the children I had heard earlier waiting for me. Instead, I faced a mirror of rushing darkness, a surface that rippled like water. Suddenly, within that haze, I saw reflections. Not my own, but figures of children, faces filled with anguish. Their mouths moved, but no sound escaped. Their eyes, wide with fear and pain, reached out to me with silent screams that echoed in my mind. "Please," I murmured, stepping closer to the edge of the fog. "What happened to you? I want to help." But the figures only faded deeper into the mist. In their wake, the fog grew thicker, swirling like a storm front around my feet. I felt like I was teetering on the edge of a nightmare, uncertainty crashing over me. Then, without warning, the fog shifted, and behind it came the sound of laughter again, this time sharp and cruel. It carved through the air, relentless, making my skin crawl. I stumbled back, feeling disoriented as it wrapped around me, almost musical in its frenzy. "Do you hear us now?" the voice hissed, layered with a dozen tones, overlapping like a chorus of ghosts. "You wanted to remember? Then embrace the fear. Let it in." There was no escape from its siren call. The ground trembled, the shifting shadows coiling at my feet, urging me to move. "Become one of us," they whispered, each insistent word winding into my thoughts, threatening to unravel my resolve. Suddenly, I was pulled into a memory, a vivid flash, a violent image burned into my mind. I found myself an onlooker at the edge of a dark scene unfolding in the woods. A group of children was playing in the sunlight, their laughter bright and genuine. I watched them, feeling the warmth of joy. As I stood there hidden behind the trees, the air changed sharply. The scene turned dark as storm clouds gathered above. I could feel the panic rising amongst the children, felt their fear twist like a knife in my gut. I saw them scatter, terror etched on their faces as dark figures emerged from the shadows, their forms cloaked in inky black. I felt the very essence of despair wash over me, suffocating. It clung to me like smoke. The laughter twisted into cries, the joy replaced with shrieking panic as the dark figures swept through the children like a scythe through wheat. The innocent were lost, snatched away into the depths of the forest. I felt their confusion deepen, their pain pulling on my heartstrings as I gasped, unable to move or help. The scene shattered, splintering apart before me. I was back in the clearing. The fog swirling around me, though the laughter now held a different note, a chilling reminder of what I had witnessed. And there they were again, the lost children, their faces smeared with grief, their eyes searching mine. "Why didn't you save us?" they cried out, their voices haunting, echoing in the shadowy corners of my mind. I didn't know," I stammered, my heart racing with guilt. "I'm here now. I'll remember you. I promise." The fog deepened, enveloping me completely. I could taste the bitterness of sorrow in the air, feel it saturating every inch of this wretched forest. "Promises are nothing without action," a ghostly voice echoed, chilling me. "What can you do for us? Can you bear our weight?" Suddenly I was not alone. Shadows flickered at the edge of my vision, figures darting between the trees, their eyes glinting like glass. "Join us and find out," they called in eerie unison, their tones cutting through the silence like shards of glass. "We will show you what we lost." I jerked away, feeling a sudden surge of panic. Around me, the shadows thickened, pooling into grotesque forms that leered back at me, their expressions twisting into grins that sent chills crawling down my back. Every whisper escalated to a roar, increasing in intensity, drowning me in the cacophony of lost souls. Their cries filled my ears, growing louder and wild, wrenching at the fabric of my sanity. I felt myself being pulled toward the darkness, the lost voices beckoning with wide, pleading eyes, wanting me to join their cause. "You'll never escape us," they sang, their laughter mingling with my thoughts, echoing against the trees. "You are one of us now." Against my will, I stumbled back into the fog, my resolve shattering as I was consumed by the weight of their sorrow. The world spun, and the darkness closed in, wrapping around me like barbed wire. Every instinct screamed at me to fight back, to break free, but I couldn't ignore their cries. I had to remember, had to honor their stories. The forest shifted, shadows swirling in a chaotic dance, and I caught sight of the ancient tree again, its light wavering in the distance. It stood as a beacon, begging me to find my way back. Fight, it seemed to say, but the shadows tightened their grip, pulling me deeper into their cravings. No, I shouted, my voice cracking as I wrestled with the darkness surrounding me. I will remember you, but I won't be trapped. With newfound determination, I pushed against the shadowy forms, feeling a flicker of warmth still shining within. Fighting through the despair that threatened to consume me, I recalled the promise I made to the lost children. I'll tell your stories. I cried with all my strength, forcing the words through clenched teeth. Slowly, the shadows recoiled as if hearing me for the first time. My voice rang out through the suffocating darkness, lighting the embers of my will. You will be remembered. I will share your pain and your joys, your laughter and your cries. You won't fade away. The cacophony began to fade, replaced by a soft, shimmering light, the shadows wavering around me, uncertainty rippling through their forms. I could see the children again, their faces illuminated by the glow emanating from the ancient tree, their eyes now brimming with hope as they pulled away from the edges of despair. I was no longer just a witness. I was their voice, breaking through the darkness that had cocooned them for so long. I felt their stories flow through me as the weight of their anguish shifted, no longer suffocating but instead transforming into power. The darkness shrieked, the ground trembling, as if the forest itself was alive with fury at my declaration. The shadows surged forward, desperate to reclaim what they thought was theirs. Yet I stood firm, letting the light guide me, pushing the dark ones back. Remember us. Honor our pain. Their voices chimed like a haunting melody, echoing off the trees as the light pulsed brighter. With every heartbeat, I felt the forest shift. The aura around me expanded, illuminating the path ahead. Deep down, I realized I was no longer just fighting for myself but for them, for the lost souls, for the stories that desperately needed to be told. And so I pressed forward through the shifting shadows, the promises I made wrapped tightly around my heart. The whispers grew softer as I moved, giving way to the flickering light illuminating my way. The forest began to breathe again, and in its breath, I could feel every twist and turn of its tragic story. The path opened up, revealing glimpses of the past, echoes of laughter intertwined with cries, memories surfacing like bubbles rising from the depths. We are here, they chimed, guiding me forward as I became immersed in the dance of light and shadow. Every moment felt uncertain, every step both exhilarating and terrifying. But I knew with each stride that I took, the weight of those stories fell upon my shoulders. I would not forget them. As shadows groaned and twisted around me, I began to walk deeper into the heart of the nightmare, where every flicker of darkness hid another tale. I was drawn in, moving willingly toward the challenges that lay ahead, ready to uncover every chilling detail, every lost breath, and every haunting echo that the woods had to share. With a newfound determination burning in my heart, I whispered to myself, I will remember. I will set you free. The shadows writhed around me like serpents, but I felt the light within me burning brightly, fierce against the darkness. The unknown awaited, eagerly expecting my next move. Drawn onward, I took a step into that shadowy realm, knowing this was my journey to embrace. The dance was far from over, and the labyrinth of tortured souls was just beginning to reveal its twisted path. The unknown awaited, eagerly expecting my next move. As I took cautious steps forward, the air thickened, buzzing with something uneasy. I could feel the weight of the stories pressed into the very soil beneath my feet, each with its own pain, a memory haunting the trees. The shadows shifted, swirling unexpectedly, pulling my attention to a deeper recess in the forest. Curiosity mingled with dread as I approached, every sound heightening my senses. I could hear twigs snapping under unseen weight, whispers drifting through the trees, like secrets being shared among the shadows. There was a soft rustling to my left, a flicker of movement caught from the corner of my eye. I turned quickly, but nothing was there. The feeling of being watched prickled my skin, an invisible gaze crawling along my spine. I shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts, but the shadows only grew denser, wrapping around me like a tightening noose. In the distance, a flicker of light blinked like a firefly, and I felt an involuntary tug to chase it down. I moved forward cautiously, each step echoing in the silence like a drumbeat. But the closer I got, the fewer shadows danced around me, and it felt like the warmth of the light pushed them away, creating a small sanctuary. Just as I thought I might reach it, the glow vanished behind a cluster of grotesque trees. The bark twisted and gnarled, and I could see faces stitched into the wood, their expressions frozen in agony. My breath hitched in my throat. "This can't be real," I gasped. In that instant, the ground opened and a steep chasm yawned beneath me, a dark abyss stretching down into nothingness. I stumbled back, trying to regain my balance, but the edge crumbled away, sending dirt and leaves tumbling into the void. An unmistakable voice echoed from deep below, a tortured scream that resonated with my very being. "No!" I yelled, feeling panic grip me. "Not again." The darkness called to me, its pull more insistent than before. I felt an overwhelming sense of despair rush through me as if the very air whispered doubts into my ear. "You are lost," it seemed to say. "You belong here with us." Clenching my fists, I took a step back from the edge, forcing myself to breathe through the fear. The shadows around me churned, swirling like a storm as if taunting my resolve. And then, from the chasm, a figure began to emerge. It was a child, one of the lost souls, but there was something off about them. Their eyes were wide, hollow, lacking any flicker of life. "Help me," they murmured, their voice soft and fragile, a ghostly echo that resonated deep in my heart. "I was afraid. I thought you would save me." The sheer despair in their tone knifed through me, twisting my gut with shame. "Please," I begged, reaching out toward the apparition. "What do you want from me?" "I want to help, but I'm scared too." As I spoke, their form flickered, contorting between the child I desperately wanted to save and a darker creature of nightmares. The laughter of the shadows echoed all around, taunting me, whispering maliciously in an ancient language I could hardly understand. Each note wove through the air, unsettling in its harmony, drowning out my thoughts. Then another figure jumped from the depths. A shadow of a man emerged next to the child, his eyes glinting with malice, a devilish grin spreading across his face. "You think you can save them?" he sneered, each word pouring over me like ice water. "You don't belong here, and neither do they. They're trapped as you are forever." I stumbled backward, feeling the ground beneath me tremble. This was no ordinary darkness. It pulsed with malevolence, as if the forest itself was alive and watching. I felt my heart race in fear and fury, fighting against the truth of his words. It couldn't be true. But the child's gaze shifted, filled with confusion and pain. "You must go back," the child warned, their voice breaking. "There's nothing you can do for us. Don't listen to him. Do not stay." I could feel the darkness closing in, the shadows stretching toward me, their whispered promises echoing against my pounding heart. But when I looked back at the child, I saw the faint flicker of hope still shining. They were urging me to remember them, to keep their stories alive. Bolstering my resolve, I turned my back to the growing chasm and took a step away. "No, I will not let you take them." The laughter turned into a thunderous roar, deafening and chaotic, shaking the very ground beneath my feet. I ran away from the abyss, the shadows clawing at my back, desperate to hold onto my spirit. As I sprinted deeper into the trees, I felt eyes watching from every direction, the dark silhouettes lurking just beyond my line of sight. Every step crackled with energy, and the forest swelled with life, growing restless around me. Behind me, the wails of despair echoed, chasing me, taunting me. "You think you can leave? You are ours." I broke through the underbrush and found myself in a small glade. The ground was littered with ancient bones and crumbling toys, remnants of lives forever lost. My heart sank as I scanned the area, realizing these were lives snuffed out by the shadows themselves. A gust of wind swept through the clearing, and suddenly the toys began to shift. They rattled ominously, rolling over as if possessed, the once happy faces contorted into terrifying grimaces. My pulse raced as a cacophony of laughter erupted, hollow and mocking. The chilling sound echoed through my mind, drowning my thoughts. "Play with us, won't you?" a voice pleaded, sweet but laced with poison. "Stay forever just like they did." I froze, dread gripping me as the nightmare seeped into my bones. Before I could react, the ground trembled again. Cracks split open, groaning like a creature awakening from a long slumber. Dark roots twisted up from the earth, curling around my ankles, pulling me down into the depths. I fought against the grip, heart racing, panic surging. "Join the dance," the shadows hissed, their whispers now sounding like a heartbeat, syncing with the growing rhythm of despair. "You cannot escape your fate." The roots tightened, squeezing like a vice, and I felt my resolve waver. Every instinct told me to fight to the end, but the despair crowding in seemed insurmountable. I glanced around, my gaze falling upon the scattered toys once more. Without thinking, I grabbed a small weathered doll, a porcelain figure with a cracked face and glassy eyes. As I held it close, a wave of memories surged through me. I saw the laughter of children, the light shining in their eyes, joy radiating as they played without fear. Fueled by that image, I roared back at the shadows, "You will not take me. I will not forget you. I will not forget them." The ground shook violently, and the roots recoiled, twisting back into the darkness that birthed them. The echo of my defiance hung heavy in the air, resonating with something deeper within the forest. With a surge of adrenaline, I tore myself free and bolted toward the path that lay just beyond the glade. The shadows hissed behind me, not wanting to let me go, clawing at my back. Each step felt like a battle as I fought to break free from their grasp. Then, just as I thought I might be safe, I came upon an altar of stone, ancient and overgrown, its surface decorated with symbols that glistened with dark mystique. Wisps of shadow danced around it, swirling like smoke, whispering in a forgotten language. I took a deep breath, fighting the urge to turn back. "This is where it began," I whispered to myself, feeling the weight of history pressing in around me. "If I can uncover this secret, maybe I can break the curse." But as I drew closer, tendrils of fog snaked toward me, wrapping around my fingers, almost pleading. I could hear the laughter and cries of the lost children merging with the deep whispers, creating a haunting symphony that pierced through my soul. With a shaky hand, I reached out to touch the altar, heart racing. "I will not fear you," I murmured, feeling the energy pulsing beneath the stone. The shadows hissed in protest, but I stood my ground, ready to face whatever was to come. Light flickered, illuminating ancient runes that shimmered with secrets the forest had buried deep. I felt it, the beckoning allure of knowledge intertwined with danger. Shadows flooded around me, surging like a tidal wave, their whispers swelling into a roar. "Unlock the past," they cried, voices mingling with anger and sorrow. "Set us free." The moment my fingers brushed against the cold surface of the stone, a jolt of energy surged through me. Images flashed in my mind, blood and sacrifice, laughter twisted into cries. The stories, they rushed in, each truth unraveling like a thread in a tapestry, each soul demanding recognition. I gasped, feeling their histories breach the surface, memories tumbling over one another, desperate to be known. I fell to my knees, overwhelmed as I absorbed the weight of their pain. "I see you," I cried out, tears streaming down my face. "I hear you. I will remember you all." As my voice filled the air, the shadows paused, something shifting in their whispers. The energy swirled around me like a tempest, bathing the altar in a blinding light. With every ounce of strength I had, I called upon their stories, feeling them intertwine with my own heart. It was a reckoning, a merging of fate and memory that drew me deeper into the abyss of their voices, screaming out for release. The response came quickly, the trees trembling as if acknowledging my call, their roots shifting, pulling at the shadows and twining around my legs. The shadows recoiled at the brightness, shifting back like a tide retreating from the shore, their cries blending into a tumult of despair. "Help us remember," they wailed, and in that moment, I felt an overwhelming connection between us. Lost children, trapped souls, and me, a fragile human relinquishing hope in the face of terror. Fueled by that bond, I stood tall again and began to chant, weaving their names into the air, drawing their stories from the depths of my heart. My voice rang through the forest, igniting the spirit of the woods, and I knew within my soul that this was the key, the understanding that could set them free. As the final syllables escaped my lips, the ground erupted in a blinding flash. The dark roots retreated, the air crackling with mystical energy, lifting me from the confines of despair. Hope surged, bright and pure, spiraling out into the throbbing shadows around me, unearthing the buried agony at the heart of this haunted place. The shadows shrieked, falling back as streams of white light erupted from the altar, dispersing in every direction. The figures, once shrouded in darkness, began to flicker, their faces changing from despair to relief as the memories I shared enveloped them. Together, we broke the curse, releasing the bonds that had kept them captive for so long. They surged into the light, their bodies glowing with shimmering embers, dancing freely in the luminous glow of hope that now washed over the forest. Tears streamed down my face as their laughter intermingled with the night air, bright and harmonious, a glorious celebration of their stories reclaimed. I could feel their gratitude washing over me like a gentle rain, filling the void the shadows had tried so hard to create. As the darkness faded, the woods transformed, the glade blooming with vibrant colors and soft whispers, a sanctuary of life restored. My heart swelled as I turned to the altar, feeling the energy still pulsating beneath my fingers. We had done it. We had unearthed the forgotten tales, breathed life back into the lives once lost within this forsaken place. Yet as I basked in the victory of this moment, A chill crept back into the air. The lingering shadows, though diminished, still coiled at the edges, watching and waiting. "This is not over," a gentle voice cautioned in my mind. "You have unlocked the past, but there are deeper secrets still hidden in the dark." With a shiver, I turned to face the dark trees beyond the glade, feeling the weight of what had been uncovered. I knew there was more to discover, more souls waiting to be saved. Could I unearth the truth of this forest and face whatever terrors lay ahead? Determined, I took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of the vibrant woods vibrating around me. The night was still alive with possibility, and I had the light of their light guiding me, urging me to uncover the darkness still lurking just beyond the radiant glow. As I ventured further into the heart of the forest, the atmosphere shifted. The vibrant colors that had blossomed in the glade began to fade into a dull, lifeless gray, a thick mist rolling in like an unwelcome shroud. It felt oppressive, wrapping around me like a heavy cloak, squeezing the air out of my lungs. The whispering winds carried unsettling sounds. Echoes of laughter turned into wails and shrieks that clawed at my sanity. My heart raced as I pressed onward, each step heavier than the last, the path uneven and twisted. Shadows crept at the edges of my vision, dark shapes darting just out of reach, making my skin prickle with fear. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone. Every rustle, every crackle of a twig felt like a warning, a reminder that I was intruding upon an ancient world that held its secrets close. As I glanced back, I just caught a glimpse of something darting between the trees. Was it a figment of my imagination or something sinister stalking me through the woods? A chill shot through me and I quickened my pace, my breath coming in quick gasps. Then I stumbled upon an old, narrow path, overgrown with thick vines and surrounded by towering trees whose branches clawed at the sky. The air smelled musty, like something long forgotten, stirring memories I couldn't quite grasp. I hesitated, but the feeling of being watched pressed heavier upon me. Against my better judgment, I stepped onto the pathway, the crunch of leaves beneath my feet punctuating the suffocating silence. As I walked deeper down the trail, flashes of movement caught my attention. More whispers danced through the trees. Shapes flickered, just beyond my peripheral vision, teasing my senses with their presence. Each movement sent jolts of unease down my spine, urging me to turn back, but curiosity pushed me to continue. Suddenly, an otherworldly howl echoed, sending a wave of adrenaline rushing through my veins. I froze, heart pounding. It sounded like something torn from a nightmare, a cry filled with rage and sorrow. The noise reverberated in my chest as I struggled to swallow, the sound chilling me to the bone. Shadows twisted together ahead, forming a dark shape that seemed to writhe and shift, almost alive. "What are you?" I breathed, the words escaping my lips before I could stop myself. The shape pulsed and shivered, revealing glimpses of haunting faces within its depths. Sweet smiles melted into grimaces of pain. Their eyes were wide, pleading, and for a moment, I felt their anguish wash over me like a flood. "Help us," they whispered in a chorus that synchronized with the howling wind. "We are trapped in the shadows. You must remember us." Panic surged in my chest, but I took a step forward, reaching out, grappling for connection amid the chaos. "Who are you?" I shouted into the dark. "What do you want me to do?" The swirling mass convulsed toward me, as if drawn by my call but reluctant to reveal itself fully. "Free us from the dark." The voices mingled with the wind, blending into a relentless plea that echoed all around. Just then, the ground beneath me trembled violently. I stumbled and fell to my knees, gasping for air as echoes of past laughter turned sinister. The laughter morphed into screams, each one more blood-curdling than the last, clawing at my sanity. The wailing swirled around me, enveloping me like a dark tide threatening to pull me under. I pressed my hands to my ears, desperate to block out the sound. But the whispers clawed into my mind, twisting with memories that weren't mine. Images of children playing, joy turned to sorrow, their soft voices transforming into cry for help. In this turmoil, I remembered the porcelain doll I had found, its cracked face reminding me of the lost ones. With trembling hands, I fished it out from my pocket, holding it close as if it were a talisman. "I remember you," I yelled over the cacophony. "I promise I'll help you." The orb of shadows shuddered, and the faces within flickered brighter, their anguish briefly replaced by a glimmer of hope. "Then follow," they urged, new vigor igniting their spirits. "Follow the light of truth." I stumbled to my feet, the grip of fear still tightened around me, but those words filled me with a flicker of determination. Pushing forward, the darkness clawed at my heels like ravenous beasts, desperate to reclaim what they saw as theirs. The shadows parted slightly, revealing another path, illuminated by a faint glow. I sprinted towards it, the whispers growing fainter. The light pulsed, beckoning me, and as I drew closer, I realized it wasn't just a singular light, it was a cluster, illuminating a clearing ahead. But as I broke into the clearing, the brightness slapped me like a wave, the contrast of light and darkness hitting me hard. It was a hauntingly beautiful sight, a circle of flowers glowing softly, radiant and enchanting. However, further into the clearing, the air felt thick and heavy, filled with a sense of dread lurking just beneath the surface. As I stepped into the circle, the flowers seemed to lean toward me, bathing everything in an ethereal glow. "This is a place of power," a voice echoed, and I spun around to see a figure emerging from the mist. It was a woman, her features soft yet somber, draped in a gown that shimmered with the essence of the woods. "Who are you?" I demanded, not sure if I should feel relief or fear. Her eyes, deeper than the night sky, pierced through me as she spoke. "I am a guardian of the lost," she said softly, "and you are the key to their release." "What do you mean?" I asked, my heart racing. The guardian gestured toward the shadows lingering outside the flower circle. "Those who cried out are bound by a darkness woven into this land. You must dig deep within yourself to uncover their stories. Only then can their suffering end." Before I could respond, the shadows began to converge, forming twisted tendrils that reached for me with dark intent. The guardian's expression turned grave. "Hurry. Focus on their pain." I closed my eyes, feeling the pulse of sorrow emanating from the circle. Their stories poured into me, a torrent of anguish and joy intertwining, flickers of laughter, snapshots of fleeting happiness, shadowed by despair and neglect. "Listen," the guardian urged, her voice cutting through the fog enveloping my mind. "Let the stories flow. Bring light to their memories." Images ignited in my mind, a boy holding a kite, laughter ringing through the trees, a girl splashing in a creek, her mother's loving embrace. I concentrated, pouring every ounce of emotion into relaying what I saw, recalling the essence of each moment. "Your memories are threads woven into this tapestry," the guardian murmured, her hands glowing as she reached toward the shadows that writhed restlessly at the edges. "You hold the power to break the cycle. Remember each face, every smile, every tear." Suddenly the shadows howled in protest, surging forward like a tidal wave, desperate to drown out my voice. "Why must we remember?" they shrieked, their sounds crashing like thunder. "Let them be forgotten." "No," I cried, pushing against the rising tide. "They deserve their stories to be told." With every fiber of my being, I channeled the light of the memories, envisioning the lives they once led, the laughter and love that had filled the spaces where darkness now thrived. "You cannot erase them. They are alive in this moment." The guardian nodded, a fierce determination lighting her eyes. "Yes, keep going. Share their lives." The shadows screamed, writhing in anger, their grip loosening slightly as they recoiled from the radiant light of the memories I conjured. Suddenly, a piercing wind swept through the clearing, a howl of despair breaking the barrier of silence. The very ground trembled beneath us, the light and darkness dancing fiercely in a war for supremacy. "You will not take them," I shouted, my voice rising above the chaos. "They will be remembered." With one final push, I unleashed everything I had, the memories tumbling forth, weaving a tapestry of light that spread like wildfire, illuminating the shadows with vivid colors of life and loss. "Now!" the guardian shouted, raising her arms high as the shadows melted against the powerful wave of light. In that moment, something shifted. The ground surged, and the energies clashed spectacularly, the light tearing through the darkness in a brilliant explosion. I felt an intoxicating rush as it enveloped me, a tidal wave of warmth pouring into me, nourishing my spirit, infusing me with courage and strength. The darkness hissed, retreating, twisting into forms of despair before imploding into wisps of smoke that disappeared into nothing. The cries of the lost children transformed into harmonious laughter, and the clearing began to bloom with vibrant colors, their spirits sprinkled through the air like confetti. Eyes closed, I reveled in the sensation, allowing the light to flow through every part of my being, filling the emptiness created by the shadows. But as the laughter erupted into joyous song, deep within the woods, I felt a shiver run down my spine. A flicker of darkness remained, something darker, more ancient than what I had just vanquished. A figure flickered at the edge of my vision, cloaked in shadow, stagnant yet potent. A looming presence that absorbed all light. My heart raced again as I opened my eyes. Somehow, despite this victory, I realized my journey had only begun. "What remains?" I whispered, feeling the guardian's gaze shifting, her expression one of grim understanding. "An even greater darkness," she replied, steely resolve in her tone. "We must delve deeper into the history of this land. Only by uncovering every layer of its corruption can we bring about true light." I took a step back from the clearing, heart pounding. The fading remnants of horror echoed behind me, and the shadows still lurked just outside the bright circle. "I'm ready," I said, steeling my resolve. "Let's face it together." She nodded, and together we turned to face the unknown darkness, ready to piece together the shattered history that had left this land so twisted and broken. I took a deep breath, the light of hope still pulsing within me, knowing I was not alone in this fight. As we stepped onto the path leading deeper into the woods, I could feel the weight of every lost story resting on my shoulders, and I knew this time I wouldn't let them drown. The darkness loomed ahead, thickening like smoke in the distance, both foreboding and mysterious. I raised my chin, each heartbeat of courage resonating within me, prepared for the horrifying truths still waiting to be unveiled. And with that, I pressed on, ready to uncover whispers of tragedy, echoes of despair, and perhaps the scattered fragments of hope once lost forever in the dim recesses of this haunted forest. With each step deeper into the woods, the air grew heavier and more suffocating, thick with secrets that seemed to cling to my skin. The trees loomed above, their gnarled branches twisting like skeletal fingers reaching out toward me, beckoning me deeper into their embrace. I felt the weight of the darkness surrounding me pressing against my chest, making it harder to breathe. I could sense the malevolent energy thickening, as if the very forest was alive with ancient rage. The serene beauty of the glowing flowers faded, overtaken by the sinister shapes shifting in the shadows, twisting and turning, mocking me for daring to enter their realm. Every rustle of the leaves sent shivers down my spine, and I could hear the whispers again, not of innocent children, but of something more dangerous, an entity that thrived in despair. "Do you really think you can free them?" a voice hissed from the depths of the shadows, low and gravely. My pulse quickened, and I turned to find a figure emerging from the darkened trees, a tall, gaunt silhouette with hollow eyes that burned like embers. "Who are you?" I croaked, fighting to keep my voice steady. "I am the Keeper of the Forgotten," it replied, a twisted grin spreading across its face. "The gate between the worlds. You awakened the lost, but now you have drawn my attention, and you will pay for it." The scent of rot filled the air as it stepped closer, the shadows swirling around its form like a cloak. I felt a chill wash over me. "What do you want?" I demanded, clutching the porcelain doll tighter, as if it held some sort of power against the monstrosity. "To keep the stories buried, of course," it responded, the words dripping with malice. "They belong to me now, and you should not have probed into the darkness. Your curiosity has led you here, and it will cost you dearly." I took a step back, my instincts screaming that I needed to run, but my feet felt glued to the ground. "I refuse to let you win," I said defiantly, though my heart raced with fear. The shadows of the Keeper reached out, wrapping around me like cold fingers, pulling me into the depths of its despair. "You think you can fight what you do not understand?" it taunted, and suddenly, images flooded my mind, visions of sorrowful faces flickering between life and death, their stories caught in an eternal loop of pain and regret, all lost in the dark abyss. I could feel their anguish coursing through me, their memories vibrating within my bones. "I will remember you," I screamed, breaking free of that paralyzing grip. The light of the memories surged within me again, vivid and bright, pushing back against the darkness that threatened to swallow me whole. I called upon their stories, channeling their pain into something powerful. The Keeper's expression hardened, frustration etched across its sharp features. "You think your light can banish me?" it snarled, and I felt the shadows grow denser, crawling over each other like serpents seeking prey. I could see them now, children's faces fading in and out of the shadows, their eyes wide with fear as they reached out to me, desperately pleading for release. "I won't let you take them again," I shouted, my voice rising over the sinister whispers swirling in the air. With renewed determination, I focused on the warmth that had blossomed within me, the collective strength of the lost. The shadows hissed, retreating briefly as I unleashed the stored energy of their stories. "You have no power here," I cried, the force of my voice trailing fire as I pushed back against the darkness. The Keeper recoiled, looking shaken for the first time. The shadows writhed, twisting and contorting as the light began to dissolve their form. "No. You will not take what is mine," it shrieked in fury, the sound tearing through the night like a shrill scream of agony. The forest trembled, branches shaking with the force of our struggle. The air thickened, electrifying as the balance teetered on the edge between light and darkness. I visualized the lost souls breaking free, their laughter now a powerful crescendo that drowned out the keeper's cries. Then came a final surge, as if the very fabric of reality was tearing apart, and in that instant, the shadows exploded outward, vaporizing into the night sky like smoke caught in the wind. Breathless, I stood in the aftermath, the forest around me illuminated by a warm glow. The songs of the lost children danced through my thoughts, a melody of hope that echoed through the trees. I could feel them, they were finally free. But as the last echoes faded, a heavy silence descended, wrapping around me like a shroud. The eerie calm was unsettling, and I couldn't shake the sensation that something still lingered in the depths of the forest. Turning slowly, I caught sight of a small clearing away from the main path. There, remnants of shadows flickered like remnants of a nightmare, chaotic and swirling, just at the edges of my vision. Even in victory, the shadows hungered. I felt a shiver creep down my spine as I approached the edge, heart pounding in my chest. A low growl emanated from that clearing, deep and challenging, echoing with the tone of something ancient and wicked. My breath quickened as I forced myself to confront the dark that still lingered. "What do you want from me now?" I whispered, knowing already it wouldn't be so simple. The keeper's visage twisted into a snarl as it emerged, now stronger and more assertive. "I can never truly be banished," it warned, its voice hauntingly familiar yet laced with malice. "You think they were the only lost ones? There are many more, hidden deeper than even you can imagine. You have awoken them, and I will always be there, watching, waiting for the moment you falter." I took a step back, the weight of its words sinking in, a deep sense of dread threading through my veins. Its presence coiled around me, and I realized then that this battle wasn't over. The victory felt hollow, as if I had opened a door to a darkness I couldn't close again. "I will break through your grip," I shouted into the night, knowing in my heart this wasn't a simple ending but a beginning. The keeper's laughter rang out like steel, chilling me to the bone, and in that sound, I understood the weight of my journey. The shadows receded for now, but I knew they would return. Shivers racked my body as I turned from the darkness, feeling the remnants of the children's stories swirling within me, both a burden and a blessing. My heart ached for them, the knowledge of their pain now a living part of me. But as I stepped away into the glow of the forest that began to awaken, I held tightly to their memories and mine. I had touched the dark, faced the abyss, and in the embrace of newfound strength, I felt ready for whatever lay ahead. Even if the shadows still lurked, I carried them with me, ready to fight against the darkness and help reclaim the lost. I was not simply a bearer of stories, I was a light against the night that would not fade easily. The woods whispered around me, their secrets a stark reminder that while one battle had ended, the war was far from over. As I looked back one last time toward the clearing, a new resolve settled within me. I would seek and find the lost, navigate through the darkness and uncover the roots of despair. The shadows could try to haunt me, but this time, I had the strength of their stories to guide me onward.